Hi there, welcome to kneppyinvests. We're 4 days into my second favourite month of the year, just after August, and the reason this is my second favourite month of the year is because it is reporting season. Companies will be releasing the half year or full year results this month. Not all companies will do that. Other companies do have slightly different reporting seasons, in particular New Zealand-based companies, that sort of thing. We've already seen about 8 or 9 companies release the half-year results, including Credit Corp, Corvest, Nick Scali, News Corp, realestate.com, and Cettire. But I really want to focus on Cettire in this video because when they released the half-year results, initially there was a little bit of enthusiasm, but that enthusiasm died very quickly and the share price eventually fell 21% on the day they released the half-year results. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the trading behind the company. We'll have a look at what happened on that particular day they released the half-year results. We'll also talk about some of the red flags that did pop up when you look at their financial statements and probably why the market did punish this company's share price. This is the 1-minute data, trading data for Cettire on the 3rd of February, the day they did release their half-year results. And we do have the last few minutes, maybe the last half hour of trading on the 2nd. And on the 2nd, the share price of Cettire closed at $3.02. And then the company released their half-year results before trading began. And when you do look at their half-year results and focus on one number and one number alone, revenue, you might come away quite impressed about these half-year results. And I think that's what happened with a lot of amateurs before and during the first few minutes of trading with Cettire. They saw those revenue numbers, they saw massive growth there, and that's why the share price actually was up 9% in the first 5 to 6 minutes of trading for this company. Then what happened is other investors looked a little bit deeper into the financial statements and they saw some things they did not like. And that's why the share price eventually fell during the rest of the day and closed at $2.38, down 64 cents or 21.2%. Usually when a company releases their half-year or full-year results on the ASX, they will release about 2 or 3 different announcements. And for Cettire, they released 3 announcements within 10 minutes of each other at 9:25 a.m. The first announcement was the most important announcement, and that is the Appendix 4D, or the financial report. They also, more than likely, or most companies will release a presentation to go along with it. So that's for those investors who don't want to dig deep into the financial report and just want something nicely presented, marketing strategy from the company. They also could release a media release, and that's exactly what they did with the 3rd announcement. And if you just look at the media release title, you might come away very impressed by how Cettire has performed in the past half year. For example, this particular title was Cettire delivers record half-year financial year 22 result, beating its full year financial year 21 results. So you might come away reading that, wow, this company is growing at a phenomenal rate. And that's why I do think the share price initially lifted by 9% on the release of these results. And then as some investors dug a little bit deeper into the Appendix 4D, that's why we saw a lot of selling in the next hour to 2 hours. First thing I always do when I see a company release the half-year or full-year results is I go straight to the cash flow and work my way back from that. So this is the cash flow statement from Cettire. There are some things to like about this. There's also some things you do have to be aware about. So you can't just look at a cash flow statement and that's it. You do have to also look at the profit and loss and the balance sheet, and I'll talk about those in the next few slides. But initially, when you look at the receipts from customers' growth, phenomenal growth, increasing from 41.2 million in the previous corresponding period to almost 120 million. So receipts almost tripled year on year. And the most important thing here, when I look at the cash flow statement, is whether the company is operational cash flow positive or negative. And for financial year 21, they were positive by 12.3 million. Now, the growth in operational cash flow was not quite as strong as receipts growth, only growing from 8.6 million to 12.2 million. So when you look at receipts growth, great growth there. When you look at operational cash flow, not quite as good growth there. But Just coming away, looking at their operating cash flow statement or the cash flow statement and coming away impressed would do you harm in this occasion. I do think you have to look at the profit and loss and the balance sheet before you have any sort of opinion about how this half year was or how Cettire performed in this half year. The second financial statement I usually look at is the profit and loss statement, which is typically the first financial statement in the financial report for a company. And just like the cash flow statement, I always have a look at the revenue. Now, revenue should be fairly similar to cash receipts or receipts, but it's not identical. There will be some differences there, but the overall story is the same for Cettire. Revenue almost tripled during the past year for this company, and then usually a company will have some gross profit numbers there, and that looks really good for Cettire as well. In fact, gross profit more than doubled from 11.3 million to 24.7 million. So at this point in time, everything is looking good for Cettire. But it's not until we go to the expenses and look at what happened with expenses over the past year, and that is the first red flag we have for Cettire. Advertising and marketing expense increased from 3.8 million to 25.9 million. That's a six-fold increase in advertising and marketing expenses over the past year. Merchant fees also increased by a lot. General and administration expenses increased by a lot. And because we saw a significant increase in expenses, in fact, expenses grew by a significantly greater rate than the increase in gross profit. And because that happened, this company went from being profitable by 2.3 million to being loss-making by 8.3 million. So this is one reason why the market punished Cettire during the trading day. Before we move on to looking at the balance sheet for Cettire, probably a good idea just to mention very quickly what Cettire does. They are an online luxury fashion retailer. So they would sell maybe Louis Vuitton bags. I have no idea because I am not the customer base for this company. In fact, I more than likely will never use the Cettire platform. So let's get into the balance sheet. I'll go through the balance sheet fairly quickly. There are a few things I want to look at here. I don't really pay attention to cash and cash equivalents because we know that number from the cash flow statement, but we'll have a look at the trade receivables that did increase, more than doubling from 1.7 to 4.5 million. Look at inventories, which I don't think is much of a factor for this company because they just use third company brands in their platform. They don't have their own brands, so we wouldn't see much of an increase in inventories, but it did increase from 580,000 to 1.3 million. The other thing I will have a look at here is debt, see if there's any debt. But the thing that really popped out when I looked at Cettire's balance sheet was a significant increase in trade payables from 18 million to 42.8 million. Now, when it comes to the cash flow statement, there is a little bit of a flaw just by looking at the cash flow statement in isolation. And that is you don't see any changes in working capital by just looking at the cash flow statement. So when you do note that the cash flow for Cettire was positive $12 million, that's not taking into account changes to trade payables, changes to trade receivables. And because we saw a massive increase in trade payables, that is telling me when you do take into account that increase in trade payables, this company was not as operational cash flow positive as they're suggesting in the cash flow statement. In fact, they would have been negative if that trade payables didn't increase by so much. So that is another red flag I do have for this company, just that massive increase in trade payables. And of course, when you look at the total equity in this company, because they were loss-making, we did see that fall from 35.8 million to 27.7 million. Now onto the daily chart for Cettire, and this goes back to when they IPO'ed on the ASX towards the end of 2020. Share price back then was just above 40 cents. And if you're a shareholder of this company, from when they IPO'd and held for the next year, you would have had a 10-bagger because the share price moved from 45 cents to a high of $4.80, which was reached towards the start of December. But that well-defined uptrend has come to a completion. The shares of Cettire have moved into a downtrend. In fact, you can draw a downtrend just there with that sloping downward black line. There's 3 pivot points on that downtrend, and we have seen lower lows and lower highs. So definitely Cettire is right now in a downtrend. So this positive sentiment behind the company has come to an end. And when they did release their half-yearly results, with the share price dropping 21.1%, the other important thing is that was on massive volume. In fact, the second highest volume during the history of this company, the highest volume was on the day they IPO'ed. So a lot of negative sentiment behind this company, and the fact the share price fell the day after they released the half-year results. There is no reason to buy into this company right now because of that negative sentiment. That's all I have for this half-year results video for Cettire, down 21% on these results. The market did not like what Cettire has done over the past year. If you do have a different opinion from the market and you think this is a great time to buy into Cettire, the other thing I should have mentioned was the market of this company was above $1 billion. So there was a lot of hype built into the valuation of this company. And when I compare it to like Kogan or any of the other online retailers, even though this company is into luxury fashion, that sort of thing, so maybe there's high margins in there, I do think this is a little bit overvalued than some of those other online companies. Anyway, if you do think I'm wrong and there's a lot of value here for Cettire, love to hear your opinion. Otherwise, last thing I should mention in these videos is I'm not a financial advisor. If you do need financial advice, make sure you seek someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.